Mercedes just won the Miami Grand Prix, and now they could lose the victory completely. Because the FIA has opened an investigation into something no one saw during the race. Not a crash. Not a mistake. A hidden advantage that might be illegal. And here's what makes this even bigger. This comes after a weekend where penalties were decided hours later, cars were disqualified over tiny margins, and the FIA showed they're checking everything more precisely than ever. Which means one thing. If Mercedes crossed the line, even slightly, this isn't just a win anymore. It's a potential scandal that could change the entire championship. At first, it didn't look suspicious. It looked dominant. Clean execution, perfect timing, another controlled win for Mercedes. Antonelli crosses the line first, extends his lead in the championship, and once again proves why this team is ahead of everyone else. On the surface, everything makes sense. But then you start looking closer. Because Miami wasn't just another race. It was a race where every top team brought upgrades. Ferrari arrived with one of the biggest packages of the season. McLaren showed clear gains in performance. Red Bull tried to close the gap with new components. And Mercedes? Almost nothing. One of the smallest update packages on the entire grid. And yet, they were still the fastest when it mattered most. That's where the first question appears. Not loud. Not public. But inside the paddock, very real. How? How does a team bring fewer upgrades, and still improve? Because in Formula 1, performance usually comes from visible changes. New parts, new concepts, new data. But here, the performance was there, without the explanation. And that's where things start to feel different. Because this isn't just about being fast. It's about being fast in a way that others can't fully understand. Now add something even more specific. The moment that decided the race. Lap 27. The undercut. Mercedes calls Antonelli into the pits. New tires. Clean air. And then, one lap that changes everything. His out lap. Faster than expected. Cleaner than expected. More effective than expected. So effective that Norris, even reacting immediately after, couldn't recover the position. That's not just strategy. That's execution at the absolute limit. And in Formula 1, when something works that perfectly, it gets analyzed. Every detail. Every sector. Every gain. Because rival teams don't just accept losing. They study it. They break it down. And sometimes, they question it. That's exactly what started happening after Miami. Because the performance in that phase of the race didn't fully align with what others were seeing from their own cars. Not enough to accuse, but enough to doubt. And doubt is where every investigation begins. And this is where the situation becomes serious, because now it's no longer about performance. It's about legality. Once the FIA starts looking into something like this, they're not asking how Mercedes won. They're asking why they were able to win like that. Why the car suddenly had that extra edge in the most critical moment of the race. Why the undercut worked so perfectly. Why the performance spike appeared exactly when it mattered most. And more importantly, is every part of that performance actually allowed? Because Formula 1 isn't just about being fast. It's about being fast within extremely tight limits. Every system is regulated. Energy deployment. Software mapping. Mechanical tolerances. Everything has a boundary. And Miami already proved how strict those boundaries are. We've seen penalties for the smallest details. Margins so tiny, they're almost invisible. And yet, they decide everything. Now apply that same level of precision to Mercedes. A team that just delivered a near-perfect race. A team that showed unexpected performance without major upgrades. A team that executed a decisive move that no one could match. That combination triggers attention. Because when something doesn't fully align with expectations, it gets examined. Now here's the key point. The FIA isn't looking for something obvious. They're looking for something precise. A behavior. A pattern. A system that works in a way it shouldn't. Because in modern Formula 1, the biggest advantages aren't always visible. They're hidden in how the car behaves. How it deploys energy. How it manages traction. How it responds under specific conditions. And that's exactly where investigations like this focus. Now connect this with what we already know. Antonelli had issues during the race. Gearbox problems. Throttle inconsistencies. And yet, the car still delivered exactly when it needed to. That's unusual. Because normally, when something goes wrong, performance drops. Here, it didn't. And that's the kind of detail that raises questions. Because now it's not just about being fast. It's about being consistently fast, even when things aren't perfect. And that's where the idea of an illegal trick starts to appear. Not confirmed. Not proven. But possible. And in Formula 1, Possible is enough to start a full investigation. Because once the FIA suspects that a system might be operating outside the intended limits, they don't ignore it. They go deeper. They analyze data. They compare telemetry. They check behavior across different laps, different phases, different conditions. And they keep going until they find an answer. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable for Mercedes. Because even if everything is legal, the process itself creates pressure. Every detail is questioned. Every system is reviewed. Every advantage is examined. And that changes how a team operates. Because now, it's not just about performance. It's about proving that performance is clean. And in a season where they're already dominating, that pressure becomes even bigger. Because the higher you are, the harder the fall if something goes wrong. So now, everything depends on what the FIA finds next. Because if they confirm everything is legal, Mercedes becomes even stronger. But if they don't, if even the smallest irregularity is found, then this isn't just an investigation anymore. It becomes a turning point. One that could change the entire direction of the championship. And now, this is where the situation goes from technical to explosive. Because once the FIA opens an investigation like this, it never stays isolated. It spreads. Across teams. Across engineers. Across the entire paddock. Because the moment there's even a hint that one team might have found something others didn't, everyone starts looking. Not just at Mercedes. At their own cars. Their own data. Trying to understand what they missed. And more importantly, whether Mercedes found something they didn't. That's how pressure builds in Formula One. Not through headlines. Through questions. Quiet ones at first. Then louder. More direct. Until they reach the FIA. And once they reach that level, everything changes. Because now, it's not just the FIA investigating. It's rival teams pushing for answers. Requesting clarifications. Challenging interpretations of the rules. And every one of those actions forces the FIA to go deeper. More detailed checks. More precise measurements. More focus on areas that were never questioned before. That's how a simple doubt turns into a full-scale technical battle. And Mercedes is now right in the center of it. Because think about their position. They're not just competitive. They're leading. They've won every race so far. They're building a gap in the championship that already looks difficult to close. And that's exactly when the sport reacts. Because Formula One doesn't like unexplained dominance. It challenges it. Tests it. Pushes it to the limit. Now here's where it becomes even more intense. Because even if Mercedes is completely within the rules, the process itself can hurt them. More inspections. More scrutiny. More restrictions on how they operate between sessions. Less freedom to experiment. Less room to push the boundaries. And in Formula One, that matters. Because performance lives at the edge. The closer you are to the limit, the faster you go. But now, Mercedes is being forced to prove that every step they take is safe. That every gain is legal. That every system behaves exactly as the rules intend. And that changes the way a team works. It slows decisions. It creates hesitation. It forces them to double-check everything. And while they're doing that, their rivals are catching up. Pushing harder. Taking more risks. Because they have nothing to lose. That's the hidden danger of an investigation. It doesn't need to end in punishment to have consequences. Now connect all of this with what's coming next. More races. More upgrades from rival teams. McLaren already showing they can fight for wins. Ferrari preparing major improvements. Red Bull still searching for answers. And all of them watching Mercedes. Waiting. Because if the FIA finds something, everything resets. Instantly. The championship gap shrinks. The momentum disappears. And the team that looked untouchable becomes vulnerable. But if the FIA finds nothing, if Mercedes passes every check, then something even bigger happens. Their dominance becomes undeniable. Because they didn't just win. They survived the highest level of scrutiny. And that's when a team becomes almost impossible to beat. So now, everything comes down to one thing. What the FIA decides next. Because until that moment, this story isn't about a victory. It's about uncertainty. It's about tension. It's about a team standing at the top, with everything to lose. And in Formula One, that's the most dangerous place you can be. And this is where everything finally connects, because this was never just about one race. It was about a pattern that Miami exposed. Look at it carefully. Mercedes wins again. Without major upgrades. With a strategy that works almost too perfectly. With a car that delivers performance exactly when it's needed, and somehow holds on even when things go wrong. That combination doesn't just create success. It creates questions. And those questions lead to one place. The FIA. Because when performance appears without a clear explanation, the sport reacts. Not emotionally. Technically. Precisely. And that's exactly what is happening now. The investigation isn't just about finding something illegal. It's about understanding something that doesn't fully make sense yet. Because in Formula One, every gain has a reason. Every advantage has a source. And when that source isn't obvious, it becomes the focus. Now here's the key point. This doesn't need to be a big violation to change everything. It doesn't need to be obvious. It just needs to be enough. Enough to break the rules, even slightly. Because we've already seen what slightly means. 2 millimeters. A fraction of a line. Tiny margins, with massive consequences. So if there is something hidden inside that Mercedes, something that gives them that extra edge in moments like the undercut, then it doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to exist. And that's what the FIA is trying to confirm right now. But here's where the story becomes bigger than the investigation itself. Because no matter the outcome, everything changes from this point forward. If Mercedes is cleared, then their dominance becomes something else entirely. Not just speed. Not just strategy. Proof. Proof that they are faster, even under the highest level of scrutiny. And that kind of validation breaks the confidence of every rival team. Because it tells them something simple. You're not just behind. You're outmatched. But if the FIA finds something, anything, then the entire season flips. Because suddenly, every result is questioned. Every advantage is reevaluated. And every team realizes the leader was vulnerable all along. That's the moment where championships shift. Not slowly. Instantly. Because momentum in Formula One is everything. And losing it, even once, can change the entire trajectory of a season. Now think about where Mercedes stands. At the top. Winning everything. Building a lead that already looks difficult to challenge. And now, under investigation. That's the most unstable position in the sport. Because you have everything to protect, and everything to lose. So in the end, the real story isn't whether Mercedes used something illegal. It's what happens next. Because Miami didn't just give us a winner. It created a question. A question that now sits over the entire championship. And until that question is answered, every victory, every point, every moment of dominance, comes with doubt. And in Formula One, doubt is the one thing that can destroy even the fastest team. So now, all eyes are on the FIA. Because one decision, one confirmation, one detail, will decide if Mercedes is building a dynasty, or standing on the edge of a collapse.